You are listening here to the special edition of D15 here broadcasting live from Draíocht, from the Art Centre that will be celebrating its 25th anniversary next year, but we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, and that's part of the kind of coming over here because we do a lot of collaboration with Draíocht over the years, like between artists and people who are in the arts, and we have one of those people sitting in front of us. But not only that, she actually worked here, and that's Sarah Ward, who worked here initially as an usher. You're most welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
So that was the start of your connection with Draíocht.
Yeah, I was just reminiscing of where we're sitting, and across the table from me, this is how I had my interview. Back 2011, I think, or 2012, thereabouts. I had just started, or is it my second year, I think, of my undergrad.
Well, that's a few years ago.
Yeah.
But of course, you do know that this will be much harder interview than that.
No.
I know.
Anyway, so like I said, you did your initial interview and then you became an usher. And then you moved on because obviously you went to school, you went to college, and you did a degree in the arts. Maybe just tell us a little bit about that before we get into the actual work.
My primary degree was in the National College of Art and Design. And I think I was in my second year when I took the job here. And it was just a nice way, I think, to add in like other arts elements. I was always interested in dance, and it was great to just experience all the different things that go on here and get to know the gallery and Fingal Arts Office. But my degree was in painting and visual culture, and I was always kind of stayed connected with Draíocht, even though I might have moved on. It was this lovely revolving door policy that Cliona McNamara, our old front of house manager, had with us, where you were always welcome back.
At different stages.
At different stages, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So between different degrees and different jaunts here and there, I kind of always knew that I'd have a job here. I'd have friends here, and that's how embedded you are into it. Yeah,
Cliona, like, she was a great powerhouse, great force, and she actually brought, as we said, put a lot of young people given their start in the arts, like, and it's just nice to mention her here today, like, while we're in Draíocht.
I'd be nowhere without her,
Yeah,
so,
that's a great thing to say. And she was a very special person and still remembered by everybody. Now, then you went on and did your art, and then you got a residency here, so your connection again.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall the date of that, but I think it was shortly
after.
I'll
tell you, January, February 2017.
Brilliant,
how about
thank
that?
You very much.
I'm brilliant. You see how much I know all that.
So I think I'd been away and was, I still had a painting practice. That was my kind of background as an art medium. And it was so fortunate then to have the studio space there. It's such a huge space, and particularly I was using oil paint at the time, and Eileen O'Sullivan, who's the current artist in resident, will know how much materials that takes, how much time that takes, how much space you need, and it's such an incredible artist studio to have that space, and coming in every day to use the studio and see friends. It's just a lovely great environment, a really thriving creative environment to work in. So I'd always, as much as I might not remember the date, I remember that experience very fondly.
Obviously we get a little bit of research done here, and I want to thank Nicola for
a deep dive.
What's interesting is your continuous stream of learning. Like, you went on to do an MA Arts and Learning in Goldsmith University in London. Tell us about that experience. How was that, moving away?
Amazing.
Yeah.
At the time, there was nothing kind of like it in Irish universities. You either did art to be an artist or you did teaching to be a teacher. There was no way of kind of combining the two.
Professional development.
Yeah. Now there's a few different ones across the country, but going to London and being in the heart of contemporary art and all these incredible museums, and just being exposed to different theories and philosophies and different artists and different spaces, really was such an incredible experience.
So you found synergy sparking off each other, creative.
Absolutely, yeah. And it kind of reaffirmed, the type of art that I want to make, is with people, and making art that maybe in a very generic way to say, like, interactive, participatory. And that's what that Goldsmiths course was all about, of how education and learning, rather, maybe I say learning instead of education, is so entangled with making and being creative and working with other people. And, that's a big thing of...
Yeah.
Just on that,
for me,
what did you learn about the individual when on that course? How does art inspire people?
I could talk about that for days, but I think what I'm particularly interested in is like that through art, going, either experiencing art, going into a gallery or museum, even going to the theatre, going to a gig, it's like what you take away for yourself. And that it's a real kind of, I think, inward journey with art, that art is, you know, so powerful in lots of ways. But my kind of major kind of hope with art is that there's a kind of prospect of like self-actualization. You learn about yourself, and through learning about yourself, you're able to work and be with others, and that art can really instill empathy in, you know, each other and humanity. I think that's really important now, you know, more than ever in the world.
Very, very true.
There was an incredible gathering with Maxine Green, teachers and philosophers, a couple of weeks ago here in Draíocht, and like, empathy was something that they talked about hugely. And again, this kind of starting with yourself and, you know, growing outwards, and, you know, that this is done, you know, through art, again, be it painting or poetry or film, photography, whatever it might be, that it kind of starts with the self and grows out and, you know, is connected to the wider world and how we understand ourselves and humanity, and how we can inspire.
How we can learn to understand better.
Yeah.
That kind of brings us neatly, because when you talked about your obviously time in London, this thing about with people and interactive, like, and I suppose this summer you've done a project, you know, and that's creative, you know, the creative response space upstairs on the first floor, called Shapes and Structures, and that's like about providing a kind of relaxed environment for children and families to kind of explore art and art making, and that's going on for the July and August. And I suppose that takes what you're saying there about what you want to see part of your art and what you're doing.
A kind of conversation that myself and Sarah Beirne, the youth arts officer here, have had, you know, for years now, is the kind of inaccessibility and kind of maybe invisible barriers there are to art, that maybe it's very elitist, it's very you have to have a certain level of education to understand it and appreciate it, where that's all, you know.
Yeah.
What?
Do you know, you've actually brought something straight back into my head. Do you remember the West End musical Billy Elliot?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, the perceptions you have.
Yes.
Certain
And yet
things,
he
spaces.
overcame all those obstacles to become a star.
Absolutely,
But his expression of himself was through his dance. Goes back to what you were saying earlier. And when I hear you talk like that, like we had Grace here, who dance means everything to her music, her ability to create.
Of course.
And I think if we could all find that in ourselves, and that's what's powerful about what you're doing here and what Draíocht is doing here.
Absolutely.
But that's the key thing is where we are today, like, and for as long as it's been here, is doing that, is providing that space. I mean, you mentioned about the artist studio. You know, if you decide you can pull up those curtains in the artist studio when you're in there and people can look in, now again, depending on what you're doing. But equally, like, when your art goes up on the walls, as in the art gallery, people can see it.
Absolutely.
And maybe come in as well, you know. But it's great that Draíocht has provided that space, like, for yourself, and even currently now in what you're doing with the Shapes and Structures upstairs, and especially with young people.
Yeah, a big kind of interest that I have and pursuit actually is, you know, the idea of that, you know, Draíocht is a civic space. The gallery is for everybody, but it doesn't, you know, often maybe feel like that is the case, and how civic buildings have a responsibility to their community for belonging, for well-being. So with the Shapes and Structures space upstairs, and really inviting people to come in, and, you know, in a gallery you're not allowed to touch, and there's expectations that you behave in a certain way, be quiet, and, you know, contemplate the work in, you know, a very intellectual way, that, you know, that's not how children, families, young people,
that's not how they behave.
That's not how they behave. So how can you create a space that's accessible, inclusive, fun, where it's playful, and through all that making and play and discovery, then you have a better understanding of the art, because that's what the artist is doing. They're playing with materials
and coming up, being creative, like, and even if you said the speaking here today now, because even if you speak, leaving we're in here today doing a live radio show. You step outside, there's a cafe operating with people coming in and out, you know, meeting other people. Then you have the art gallery currently with an exhibition. You've got yours upstairs, and then you might have a rehearsal going on next door in the theatre. So it's very, very
but it's vibrant, and we talked about making art accessible. Right next to us, a few months back, I was in there, and it was packed full of ordinary people that would not normally go to the theatre, because one, it's deemed to be now part of what everyone can expect to do.
Absolutely.
It's affordable.
Yeah.
Accessible in the sense you can get to it easy, and the shows they put on are entertaining and very, art in expression.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you've been associated with all this here. What I'd like to hear from you as a person who's immersed yourself in this entire world of art and development, what's your wish, what's your objective going forward for you personally, what you would like to see?
Is, I think, a change in how, this is a lofty idea of just a change in how galleries are perceived. I think, given their history, they come from, this, if you think of the Louvre, think of our National Gallery, these big monumental structures that are about power and authority, because they're big government kind of collections. And I think a lot of that comes across even still in the likes of, Draíocht, and again, how you perceive the space of the gallery. And I just would love to see, and I suppose what I hope to do with some of my own practice is to create new ways of experiencing art.
Okay.
Is a big kind of thing.
Great.
Yeah. And that maybe just moves us on to your current endeavours, your PhD at TU Dublin. Which used to be known as Grange Gorman, where I actually started my illustrious career many years ago. But it's great to see it now as a college. Maybe you can just give us a little explanation about that and the scholarship that you're actually on, and maybe just talk about what that entails.
Yeah. Again, this was a conversation that had happened with Sarah Beirne a few years ago, and it can take a while to get these things off the ground and have everything in line, but I was very fortunate that TU Dublin had this scholarship. It's called Arise, and it's amplifying research innovation, supporting enterprise. And across all the technological universities across Ireland, they have established a fund for researchers, be it at PhD level like myself, or post-docs as well, for research. So they've identified key areas of research that they want to interrogate, and within kind of what I'm doing with Draíocht is my enterprise partner of really embedding research in something physical. It's not this abstract thought. It's in, it's in industry, it's in enterprise, and it's, being able to sustain those, I suppose, means. A lot of, research that is coming through the Arise programme is that it's embedded in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And, what I'm doing with Draíocht is, around sustainable communities, is around well-being, is around, access to education for all. So it's a really unique scholarship. Lots of very interesting projects are happening across the country, really, again, connected with an industry. And I'm really fortunate that I was able to create the opportunity to really bring in Draíocht as a research partner.
Yeah, so Draíocht, as you said, is with yourself on this project, and again that just shows you again the importance of what Draíocht, one of the many things it does. And that's it's kind of Sites of Learning is the name of the project.
It's really fundamental principles of community development what we're talking about here. It's about encouraging, building capacity, capability, opportunity, confidence, empowerment, all those good things.
Agency, autonomy,
And it's helping people, ordinary people, and people with difficulties to believe in themselves and to know and have the confidence that they can do and achieve like mainstream. And I think what you're doing here, it's just kind of blowing my head here and listening to it,
It's amazing stuff.
I hope so. I'm only at the beginning.
Well,
from every oak tree.
Yes.
There you go.
Acorn.
Anyway, on that note, Sarah Ward, we can tell you your interview is over and you've got the job. You've got the job.
I'm here.
Preparing will be in 5 minutes outside.
Anyway, listen, I want to thank you again, Sarah, for coming in, taking the time to come into us, and giving, as Charlie says, that great explanation. And it's really amazing, the stuff you're doing. And I want to wish you the best of luck with your PhD.
Thanks very much.
Next time you see it will be Dr. Sarah Ward.
Well, we have to genuflect.
We have to
Yeah. That's a requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, I will only answer to doctor. Yeah.
Anyway, no doubt we'll be seeing you around as you get involved with your different projects here involved in with Draíocht.